Metaphysics is things that's happening and we may not be able to see. Some people say spirituality is metaphysics. Some people say God is metaphysics. But the definition of metaphysics is meta, you cannot see, is something invisible, and physics means that it is happening. In the past, for example, acupuncture, qigong, is metaphysics. They know it works, they don't understand how it works, but it's working. So it's evidence-based. Metaphysics in the classical categorization is Aristotle, Socrates, Confucius, Lao Tzu, Plato. They are all metaphysicians. They're metaphysicians because it involves philosophies. It talks about 5 elements, and that is dated back before the Christ of birth. And of course, we can date back a very long time. Right now, the contemporary metaphysics that is credible and is evidence-based. Evidence-based means that it's proven to help and work, and it's repeatable, and there's some form of repeatability and consistency. Of course, we know feng shui, 八字, numerology, and there are many different kind of numerology. There are many different kind of 八字. And why is that so? And even though there are so many they have so many followers. So who is correct? Who is the truth? My answer to it is they are all right because they will be right when a condition applies to it, and they are meant for the right audience. However, where does all this comes from? Now, all this thing comes from 300,000 years ago. We are taught, some of you have known, roughly 300,000 years ago, we have our creator, not prime creator, but our creator, created us. And we came, and we evolved. We were believed to be genetically engineered. One of the technology they have is how much they understand the universe work. The universe work in many series of dimensions, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, and so on and so forth, up to 11 dimensions. Of course, we are known to think in 2D in a linear way, most of us. For example, if you don't love me, you must hate me, for example. Right? If there's no love, there's hate. Or in the world of duality is you only know it's high when you experience low. You only know that it's hot when you experience cold. You only know that it's bright when you ever experience darkness. So that's 2D. We think 2D, we live in 3D. We can feel, we can touch, we can smell. So 3D, one more dimension, is experiential. Coming back, the entities that created us, who understand how the universe works from the material point of view, etheric point of view, energy point of view, and multidimensional point of view. Each of the levels of dimensions work the metaphysics in different way. So which is to say, the observer who entrapped himself, who understand metaphysics from the 3-dimensional point of view, they would not consider the factors of 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensions where the metaphysics they are taught, which is concerned. And the metaphysics that to be taught, if there's any, you think, to be taught in 5th dimensions onward, may not be the metaphysics you are taught with its basics. As I said, from the point of numerology, colors, crystal, sound, astrology, even some people believe witchcraft, magic. So all this kind of technology are manifest by the observer who perceive and can conceive it. With many dimensions that we have to evolve. Our human consciousness is for evolution. We are here to evolve. And we are here to evolve from 2 dimensions to 3 dimensions to 4 to 5th and so on. The bottom line for us is to able to understand, to perceive and conceive in a different level. Only when we ourselves able to perceive and conceive at a different level, we will limit whatever the metaphysics we are taught. So there's one form of most of the teachers may not realize, and some of the teachers may have realized, or it's hard for them to convey to you. Coming back to the entities that created us or genetically engineered us, their understanding of the universe is as of a different dimension, fourth, fifth onwards. When they left and leave us a template to remind us how our matrix, how our template works, where 5 elements, where your date of birth, where the numbers are concerned. There are many humans that do not understand the true meaning behind it, but they can use it. So that when they use it, as time passes, like all religion, like all topics, and like all disciplines, they will start to have different denominations. There are many denominations in the church, for example, from Christianity. There are many denominations from Buddhism, for example. Each of them represent certain fractals, the fragments of truth itself. They do not in any way has to be forced, but they are representing a fractal of truth itself. Because of this, the original metaphysics is of a vastness and a wholeness of knowing and understanding. When people ask me for seeing feng shui or consultations, they ask me what school do I come from. I say I have no school. So there are some of us around as such. It comes from knowing, a knowing that is of similar resonance of the knowing of some of our entities who has created us. So this knowing originated from a unifications of all other knowings, the knowings of all different kind of techniques. So when the prime creator left, they taught about 5 elements, how the universe are formed out of 5 elements. But this is as much as I know, to my own knowing. It is only limited to our dimensions. It's not even an absolute truth, because the creation will express itself and manifest itself in the multiverse in many forms that's beyond imaginations. If there are entities, some of them that have a body, or some of the entities who do not have a body or etheric body, the way that life expresses itself is almost infinite or infinite. When the entities talk about 5 elements, it is talking about mechanically how our world and our reality function. It is still not even an absolute truth. So that means that when we talk about God, our understanding is also limited to our operating system or our dimension of knowing and how our consciousness perceive and conceive. Likewise, Buddhahood and so on and so forth, or the Tao. But of course, all of these, I believe, they are here to help us to evolve, to move on to a higher state of understanding and consciousness. There is one form, 5 elements, and then they move on to talk about stars, astrology, Taurus, Gemini, Sagittarius, the month that you are born. Of course, Taurus reside in the cluster of Orion and also in Pleiades. This is another form of metaphysics. Our relationship with the stars can only be understood as much as our understanding of ourselves by how our consciousness conceive and perceive. There is classical metaphysics, there's human metaphysics. The message that I receive is transcendent metaphysics, that we let go of how much we have been taught a certain form of techniques and patterns, because they are still in the realm of human and they are in the realm of earth. As much as it is useful, it is entrapping itself. The purpose of all this teaching are to help us, not to entrap us, is to make us ask questions. Who we are, why does it work, who taught us, where does it originate to, and why are all this somehow interconnected. I give you an example. Numerology. There are Kabbalistic numerology, Pythagoras numerology, Egyptian numerology, and all forms of numerology. I Ching numerology, binary numerology, vortex numerology, and so on and so forth. Each number cluster systems represent different things. And when people understand at a 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional level, they will tend to argue who is more superior and who is right? And my answer is, if you understand fractal, the fractal universe, the universe expresses itself in different ways, and it is all right, and they are all correct. Again, it depends on the observer. Again, from the quantum mechanics point of view, if you follow Richard Feynman, where he talks about the double slit theory, it is really depends on the observer who perceive and conceive. Now, this is also consistent to Buddhist teaching. Unfortunately, when people are too into techniques, that's where they entrap themselves into 3D understanding. So if you listen to Crayons, Bashar, Zah, and so on and so forth, they are always teasing us, our understanding is limited by our dimension of operations. The video here is to remind you to let go of our biasness, to have this awareness of how we think, how we perceive and conceive constantly, so that we can allow ourselves to evolve. And when we allow ourselves to evolve, more will show up and more will come. Things will happen. And that's the power of allowing. So transcendent metaphysics basically is to remind us that all these metaphysics come from one source. And I saw there's one pattern, there's one consistency, it's multidimensional, but yet it's also in oneness and in one completeness. Be it numerology, 八字, feng shui, tarot card, you name it. All forms of schools and all thoughts, they are under one dominion of one law, which is the consciousness itself, expressing itself. So transcendent metaphysics, for example, if you do not understand numerology, and if you understand what the numbers represent, and you think that the combination of the numbers denotes certain characteristic or fate of a person during a certain time, I'm not saying that it's wrong, but you are observing at the two-dimensional and three-dimensional classical teaching system that has been practiced on this planet for years. This has to stop, and it has to transcend. And because of this kind of thinking and teaching, there has been too much arguments and disagreement and misunderstanding between all of us. In transcendent metaphysics, is that you transcend yourself. There's no method that you're looking for. You have to transcend how you see things. You have to have a breakthrough that's called transcendence of how you perceive and conceive. I can give you an example. 213. In certain school, they say 213 is a bad vibration. Well, in the world of duality, it is, but it is also not if you perceive on another level. People with a vibration associated with 213s are powerful transformers, powerful transformators. They can transform situations. They are very decisive. They can be very decisive, and they can create and co-create new things on this planet. Some of the most powerful spiritual teachers are 213, and some of the worst people in a worst vibration can be 213 as well. So you have to take into consideration of duality. Tarot card, for example, is the same thing. Angel cards is the same things. There are always a duality for you to consider. When you are practicing metaphysics, and when you yourself transform, you will see different meanings from the stars, from the chambers, from the palace, from the numbers, or from the gods that it represents, or for the cards that represents. This is a period of inner work. The future of science is not out there, as many say, it's in here, in our mind, because we are the creator ourselves. If we are the creator ourselves, there is no darkness and there's no evil. That's where you transcend from good and evil on this planet. Because if you believe there's a creator, why would the creator create something against itself? And then you will ask, so where does the evil come from? Well, if we are living on 2D and 3D, and we choose to remain 2D or 3D on this planet, and so it will be. And so the things that we see is good or bad. Good is when you see the light. Bad is when we can't see the light. And when a person can't see the light, it's in darkness. Human will start to make up things themselves. When we are in darkness, we tend to have many things that come into our mind. Our thinking will follow. If there's no knowing, there's only thinking. And the thinking comes from our cerebra on the frontal lobe. And this frontal lobe will think. And because it cannot come up with an answer, and we are in the darkness, the brain is capable of imagination, and we can keep creating a lot of things. So all demons and devils are created by us. Do they exist? Yes, in our realm of duality. We created them. I give you an example. Did you know that in all different cultures, that when you pray and give worship to the trees or to a cave, and many of us have witnessed and know that there will be spirits. So who created who? That's one example. If you keep praying one corner, or one tree, or one stone, and more people start praying to one stone and one tree, and one reservoir and one rivers, and we channel our energy and consciousness to their entities, we are giving life to itself. So our mind are creating life constantly in different dimensions and different realms. So the gods that we talk about, for example, in Greece, Zeus, Hera, are they real? From a spiritual and metaphysical point of view, yes, if you understand multi-dimensions on this planet, just on this planet. They are not from other galactic systems. They are from different realms, different dimensions, but they are still entrapped in our human mind. We created them, or they created us. How much do we understand creations? So this is transcendent metaphysics. When people do not understand that we created everything, we are entrapped in what is right and wrong. I give you another example. In the medical establishments, we all know there are thousands and thousands, and until I'm talking now, it's still happening. People who have near-death experience, they have to be recorded because they wake up from the mortuary. They were legally and medically declared dead for 3 hours. And when they came back, it has been consistent. For the Catholics or for the Christians, they will say they see Mary or Jesus. But for the Buddhists, they will always say that they saw Buddha or Guan Yin. Again, who is creating who? So who is creating us, and what are we creating? Again, my question to you is, how much do you understand creations? And how much do you understand our prime creator and who we are? The message today is to encourage the people who practice spiritualities and metaphysics that we have come together, we ought to come together and to harness our consciousness energy and transcend together. To transcend together has to be experiential. It's no longer by learning. Most of the things that I practice in my center and in our clinics is by knowing. It is not taught. It doesn't belong to any schools. Are we unique here? No, there are plenty of us, as I always say, walking around this planet right now. We are evolving. We are humans. We come from Earth still, but we are evolving. I'm not here to tell you that I try to be somebody else. That I'm not. We are evolving. And we must evolve faster, as we ought to, so that we all can change the way we perceive things and conceive things. When the way we perceive changed, what we conceive will change. Now, many of you know that I wrote a book, Awaken Your Healing Power. My axon were gone, my retina were gone, 80% were gone. Medically, I'm declared blind. And many doctors don't think that I can able to walk and drive and do what I'm doing right now, diving and climbing and trekking, doing sports. And until now, I still have doctors asking me, how did you do that? What vitamins did you take? My answer is no. As a founder of Transcendental Connection, my message to people is how we transcend how we perceive. When we perceive, perception changed, our body changed, because what conceived out or has to change. Of course, I must have a disclaimer. All healing will only happen when the condition is favorable and is right. It must not go against science, or it must not go against a certain form of logic. But then, when I say this, it is also meant for people who perceive and conceive at 2 and 3 dimensions. And the people who are watching my YouTube right now, that is 4th and 5th dimensions, they'll say, no, many things there's no logic, such as yourself. They are also right. Because how they perceive is what they create. So I'm talking here to a spectrum of people, humans. We are all humans who observe in a quantum mechanical way and scientific way that we are observing. We are the observer. Now, strictly speaking, from quantum theory point of view, it's about observations. But who is observing? Like Richard Feynman always said, who is observing here? The observer. Once they change the operating system, will conceive different things. With that, I look forward to meet up with you, and we can go somewhere else and experience and live. And through this, we have to, and it will help us to change our experience and change how we perceive our own experience, and then our body, our life will change. Now coming back to my health, when doctor said I couldn't walk and run, I cannot see again, but here I am, I'm driving. All because I transcend my understanding from the bottom of my life, how I perceive myself and how I conceive my life again. So every day we are reconceiving our life. So this is what it is all about for today's message.